Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. Thanks for tuning in here on O'Connor and Company, starting your day the right way here in your nation's capital. Always proud to be your wingman here, riding shotgun, no matter what you're doing, getting to work, getting the kids to school, or just kicking back in the kitchen with a cup of coffee. Thanks for making us part of your morning routine. Coming up later in the program at 7:35, Asra Nomani is going to join us, talk about that decision in Fairfax County regarding admissions policies at Thomas Jefferson High School. I'm Larry O'Connor, alongside the Grande Dame of Independent Women's Forum, Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. And I need you to keep it under control.
Oh.
Because I know that you are a woman of a certain age who is highly influenced by
Larry.
teen heartthrob KIRK Cameron. It's always great to speak with him. KIRK, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Larry. It's great to talk with you, too. Julie, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, guys, for having me on the show.
So tell me about the adventures with Iggy and Mr. KIRK. You're doing the whole sort of puppet thing going on here with children's television. This is great.
So to give a little context, this last year I've been traveling around the country writing children's books and attempting to read them in public libraries. And interestingly, I was denied by over 50 woke libraries that previously held drag queen story hours.
Yeah.
There is a real agenda going on here, as we know so clearly, to shift the morals in our country and fill the hearts and minds of our children with a set of values that's very different from what our country was built on. And so we ended up pushing back quite a bit. We've been up against Scholastic and the American Library Association and found tons of support, tens of thousands of parents and grandparents coming out of the woodwork wanting kids to be influenced by the right kind of characters. And so now we're really leaning in with a new children's show. The power of story is so powerful to shape children's identity and their values. And we've got a brand new one-of-a-kind show called Adventures with Iggy and Mr. KIRK. So I play Mr. KIRK, and there's a little buddy, iguana named Iggy, who is puppeteered by a world-class Muppets Jim Henson Sesame Street puppeteer. And we've got some other guest stars, and it's an amazing new show that I think is going to help build kids' character while parents trust the entertainment.
Where can this be watched? Because, look, there is a huge demand out there. Long ago, parents could turn the TV on and then go mow the lawn. Now you have to sort of hover. And as someone who doesn't like to really hover over my kids, it's frustrating. So tell us where people can get access to this new show.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I applaud you for saying that. Too many of us as parents have taken the easy route and used the TV as a babysitter, and now we've got a telephone that shows them all manners of wickedness and perversion. Yeah. So we can't do that. I would say there is no place where you just leave your kids alone with a screen. You've always got to be watching. But this show that we're making is coming out this summer, and you'll be able to watch it on free platforms like YouTube and Rumble. It may move around to some other places, but we want to make it widely available for everybody. And in order to do that, we have to get really creative and pull together the cast, the crew, the songwriters, the animators, and fund the whole thing ourselves. Otherwise, you pull Hollywood or Netflix in, and they end up, twisting and contorting the content, and then it's not good anymore. So this is a grassroots effort, much like The Chosen, and we're gonna really significantly alter the landscape, we believe, in children's programming.
Oh, so you're using the crowdfunding model that Angel Studios has utilized for The Chosen and some of the other projects that they've done, and sort of pay it forward. That's very cool. So where can people go if they want to support this endeavor?
So go to watchbrave.com. That's watchbrave.com. And you can find all these really cool rewards for being a part of producing this show with us. Like you can get one of your kids or grandkids to be in one of the episodes of the TV show, or get a couple of tickets, Julie, to come to the red carpet premiere to meet me and the other guest stars who are in the show, and together with Iggy. Iggy, he's the real star in Nashville, Tennessee.
I don't understand exactly why Julie is singled out for the red carpet invitation here.
Well, I checked the records, and she is a member of the Mike Sievert fan club from back in the 80s. And so,
member, I think I'm the president.
Oh my Lord! All right, do you miss that hairstyle? By the way, could you grow your hair out right now and match that, because that was epic.
It was epic. We all had that poofy in the front,
yes,
party in the back kind of hairdo. Like you could hide a family of squirrels in those.
Well, Kirk, I want you to know I actually curled my bangs for this this interview.
Did you?
I did.
That's so great.
They're standing tall.
Listen, you now that you're performing with a puppet and having to react and interact with a piece of cloth, you can tell us which of your former co-stars does this most remind you of?
Don't say anything.
Oh man,
kidding.
Gosh, that's such a fantastic question. I don't even know how to answer.
Because I like to cause trouble, Kirk, and it's a horrible ththing. You're a man of God, and here I am drawing you into my dementia. I've always been naive.
I'm sorry. Working with a puppet sort of makes me a different kind of man of the cloth.
Yeah. Okay. Nicely done. Listen, my kids. I feel like my kids. My youngest is now 17. And my oldest is 24. Good God, I'm an old man. And I feel like they were sort of in the final stage as children of the last moments of good children's programming. They did Blue's Clues, and for those first several seasons with Steve Burns, Blue's Clues was fantastic and wonderful. Little Dora the Explorer thrown in there. You see what Blue's Clues is doing now. It's insane. The new revival of Blue's Clues. It literally did get taken over, children's television did, Kirk. And I used to naively think that the free market would prevail here. And if there was a demand from parents who didn't want all of this, garbage injected into children's television and the indoctrination, then something would rise up. But the corporations who run these things, you just mentioned, whether it's Disney or Viacom or Comcast or Netflix or what have you, they don't care about the profit margin here. They don't care about the incentives of a free market. They have something that overrides that. They really do want to push this message and agenda. That's why there isn't an alternative until now.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And there's scary videos that you can watch on YouTube about leaders that are controlling giant funds like BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard and things like this. And there's financial interests that are so great to go along with this agenda that it doesn't matter if somebody bans a little Target or a little Bud Light. There are larger dollar numbers at work here. So the way I see it is that in history, great revivals and awakenings, great turnarounds and comebacks have often come culturally during times of moral decline, spiritual apathy, political corruption, and economic collapse. I think we're due for another one right about now, based on what the culture looks like. And I feel rumblings of a resurgence of what's right and true and good in the hearts of parents all across the country.
Kirk Cameron, I feel like today's program here, you're just joining us now after 2 hours already, and I almost feel like I've been a little bit more down, more negative, and a little more mopey than I usually am. And you're starting to sort of move me in a direction that is where we usually are, a little more positive, a little more upbeat, and a little more hopeful about where we're headed. So I'm going to ask you, do you mind sticking around? We just got to do a quick traffic check for a minute, because I want to keep pulling on that thread, because I think that there are signs and indications that there is a huge shift going on culturally in this country.
Yeah.
And I'd love to continue that conversation. Do you mind?
Sure.
Cool. All right, real fast. We're going to stay positive here. 7:15 WMAL.
Join Vince Colonnese March 7th for the all-new State of the Union at Bourbon Boulevard in Chantilly. Details at WMAL.com/steak.
And we continue now with Kirk Cameron talking about his brand new children's television series, Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk. You can go to watchbrave.com to get all the information on it and to contribute. This is a crowdfunding program which has been so successful. Kirk, you mentioned The Chosen there and how incredibly successful it has been telling the story of the Gospels and Jesus choosing his apostles. It's phenomenal storytelling and movie making. It really has breathed new life into the Gospels, I think. for those who have not discovered it, or even for those who have read scriptures for years. But also we saw at the Super Bowl, you saw the Hallow app, this prayer app for Catholics. They did a 30-second ad with Mark Wahlberg and Jonathan Rumi of The Chosen, and they became the #1 downloaded app of the week there during the Super Bowl. You see other indications here where the culture is shifting here, and the strength of what Brave Books has been able to do. It's almost like the Holy Spirit is involved, Kirk, I wonder if you could sort of expand on that and give listeners an idea of how they are not alone here, and that they can join these communities and really make a difference in moving against these very, very dark forces that we're seeing.
Yeah, it can be very discouraging. In fact, there's a scene in The Lord of the Rings where Frodo is saying to Gandalf, I wish I did not live to see these times.
Yeah.
And he said, of course, no one wishes to see these times, but that's not up to us to decide. What is up to us is what to do with them.
Yeah.
And one of the things that gives me great hope is to travel around the country, speaking at churches and schools and libraries, and seeing thousands and thousands of parents and grandparents who are wanting their children to learn about the country that they grew up with, that they loved. They recognize the deception that's going on through the media narratives, and they're beginning to take back into their own hands their family time, their church time, their education time. The homeschooling movement is exploding, and it's going to be a fight to the death. I mean, the forces of good versus the forces of evil, and everyone's going after the children. It's why we're seeing Blue's Clues and Coco Melon and all of these shows really indoctrinating children to help them shape their identity toward really what they want to be is the Great Reset. And what we need to do is take seriously the admonitions in Scripture to train up our kids in the way they should go. Teach them, tell them stories when they're getting up out of bed, when they're walking along the way, when they sit down, and when they go to sleep. If you ship your kids off to other people to raise them, don't be surprised when they come back with their values. So I think everybody can do something. And as you said, many people are creating channels in a parallel economy to have new education, new businesses, apps to remind you to pray, and communities to pray with. We're in the entertainment industry. And one thing people could do if they value children's entertainment is to help us make this show.
Yeah.
And you can do that by going to watchbrave.com. There's all kinds of really cool rewards for helping us. And we believe that perhaps this national setback is really a divine setup for a spiritual comeback led by the family of faith.
Kirk, I wanted to talk to you, too, about the fact that you take on the culture head on. So many people, and I've been there myself, Rod Dreyer wrote the book, Benedict Option, where you just sort of, walk away from this horrible world and horrible culture that we're living in. But you give us hope that the culture can be changed, the popular culture. And one thing I think that is so important is that let's not pretend that kids aren't attracted to some of the more coarse things out there. But you want to ultimately give them a choice, and parents a choice of better things for their children to watch. So tell me just a little bit about why, you're not taking the Benedict option. You're actually taking this on head on, which I think is really brave.
I think that's the plan. I don't think the plan is to retreat. And I've spoken with Rod, and we've talked all about these things. And I don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen in the future. But what I do know is that we live in a very unique country, and that what we have, the liberty that we have, is the result of a certain philosophy of life. And it's not the philosophy that you see prevailing in China or in the USSR or Cuba or something like that. And if we want these liberties, we've got to nourish the root that fed them. So let me end with this quote by Noah Webster. He's a founding father of American education. He gave us Webster's dictionary, and he said every government is built on some religion or founding philosophy. He said the education of that nation will propagate the religion of that nation. And in America, that foundational religion was Christianity. And it was sown into the hearts of Americans for 200 years through the home and through schools, public and private. Our liberty, our growth, and our success is the result of a biblical way of life. And our future prosperity and freedom depends on teaching our children the principles of Christianity. If we sever the root that caused the growth of the country will look good for a while, but will eventually wither and fall over. The sweet fruit of liberty, of blessing and protection will go away, and that's what we're realizing. If we re-nourish the root of faith, I think that the winds of heaven can blow again, and we can see a great awakening once again in America.
Like Rob Reiner is not going to like hearing that at all, KIRK Cameron. You know, you're going to be on his blacklist there, but that's a good thing. That's why we like you. Great stuff. WatchBrave.com is the website. WatchBrave.com. Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk, and you can contribute to seeing KIRK Cameron act with a iguana puppet. Which honestly, I mean, you've reached the pinnacle, man. This is congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. We need to have this stuff, and we need it now.
Yeah, definitely.
It is 7:23, and
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
good morning. 7:36 here on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock, and Julie, we're joined by a good friend, Asra Nomani, journalist, activist from Fairfax County, who was part of the team leading the charge against the racist, anti-Asian American policies of the Fairfax County School Board and the Thomas Jefferson High School admissions program. And sadly, we got a huge setback yesterday, maybe even the final setback here in terms of the latest fight, where the Supreme Court decided they would not review these admissions policies and they would allow the appeals court decision to stand, which keeps in place discriminatory practices, official government-sanctioned discriminatory practices against Asian American students. Asra Nomani, thank you for joining us. You're, by the way, co-founder of Coalition for TJ. Thank you for joining us, Asra.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys. Do you hear that? Do you hear that lilt in my voice?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That lilt is because there was a gasp yesterday. Yes, there was, and we're not going to give up, you guys. We're not going to give up.
Well, what are the next steps here?
Okay, this is what I just researched. Okay, first of all, this is ridiculous, right? We have the best case possible of the racism of the Fairfax County School Board. We have the text messages, the emails. I mean, they might as well have just written it on their foreheads, right? But this is what happens. This is what I have learned happens in the arc of justice prevailing. You guys know the name Brown versus Board of Education, right?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? These are the names that you don't know. Elijah Tinnen versus the Board of Education of Ottawa. Reynolds versus the Board of Education of Topeka. Williams versus the Board of Education of Parsons. There were scores of cases before we had Brown versus Board of Education. And this is what we did, you guys. Julie, you did it. Larry, you did it. Like every single person who listened to us on WMAL did it. We raised consciousness. Like we made this a national issue, that there is this racism that happens that's put forward in this world now in the name of equity. And we don't save it right now for Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, but these guys, they lost yesterday because we're not going to give up. Like we are going to stick with it, and this just means our eyes are going to be on the school board continually.
So I appreciate that, and this is one of the reasons why we love your energy and your enthusiasm, because we always got to keep an up, even in the darkest times. No, you are there. So here, based on the progression that you just described there, leading up to Brown v. Board of Education, a couple of things happened in this country. First of all, the makeup of the Supreme Court changed. I mean, honestly, I don't know how much the makeup of the Supreme Court can change here. But the other thing that happened is that the attitudes in this country changed. The attitudes with regard to segregation changed, and ultimately the Supreme Court sort of reflected that. So I guess that's the frontier that we sort of need to embark upon here. I think we took for granted that most Americans recognized that racism is racism no matter who the victim of that racism is. And I guess that's the education that needs to take place here.
You're so right. You know, a while ago I wanted to be a lawyer, and guess what? I'm going to go become a lawyer now, for sure.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Yeah, this is going to be my next chapter. My dad's 90, and I still have a good 30 years. I can still do.
Oh, there
damage.
you go. Here's these overachieving Asian Americans again.
I've got another
be a
career.
lawyer.
Watch out, George Mason. So here's the thing. Absolutely. What I was told 20 years ago when I first wanted to go to law school was that, Asra, you have to win in a court of public opinion to win in a court of law. And I really do believe that we have educated the court of public opinion. But you know what's so tragic here, Larry? Just to your point exactly, I did the numbers. Like, I know you love the politics, and Julie, you love the politics of this stuff. So 9 Supreme Court justices, right? And we thought that we had a majority. But it turns out that, in fact, only 2. Okay, hooray for Samuel Alito for writing the most amazing dissent, the most amazing dissent. He warns about the virus that's going to spread of this new racism. Clarence Thomas agreed with him. So we knew we weren't going to probably get the 3 justices, liberal justices, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. But that left us with 4 conservative justices, John Roberts, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. I'm going to get the story of which one of them betrayed us, because those guys, they betrayed us. They showed intellectual cowardice. They went out on an important position, refusing race-based admissions in college. But it's like they grandfathered Fairfax County public schools into the racism, and that's not okay.
Alito had a really interesting comment in his dissent where he says, he says that it was flagrantly wrong what TJ is doing. And he said that it's wrong that the court held up some discrimination against Asian Americans because it was legally tolerable as long as as those who remain overrepresented in the school, meaning as long as there's still a lot of Asians in the school, then we don't have to worry about it, which seems, I mean, if that is really, and again, the majority did not really provide a reason why they're not going to put this case on the docket. So you have to wonder, but Alito's pretty much hinting there that they're just like, it's okay for right now.
Yeah, he had such a strong position, and it's to what Larry just said, about public opinion, and what you're saying, Julie, is that you didn't finish your sentence, your thought just now, but you were about to say it seems very something,
Yeah.
And the word to me is callous.
Yeah.
Like, it's callous and cold-hearted about young people. Yeah. Like, we know John Roberts has young kids, Amy Coney Barrett has young kids. Like, this is like the future of any child, every child, and somehow they became callous in this country about Asian kids, because that is our journey now. Like, and what's happening is those kids are getting the message, so they're changing their names, they're trying to look less Asian. They're disowning their ancestry in order to write new scripts that don't connect them at all, to that quota that isn't to be accepted.
So, Asra, I mean, we talk about changing the culture, changing hearts and minds, and changing public perception. It's a lot easier to just run for office and change the makeup of the school board. How about instead of becoming a lawyer, you run for school board and you start harnessing all of that energy in the Asian American community who are being discriminated against and put these people out of office?
Yeah, I want to figure it out one day, Larry. I hear you. I've heard you for years. I hear you. I love your call to action.
Because honestly, we don't need the Supreme Court if we win elections and dispose these people who are injecting racism into the admissions policies. Make them defend their racism and harness the energy of the Asian American community, as well as just anybody in Fairfax County who recognizes racism for what it is. Make Carl Frisch stand up there and say, oh, no. It's a good thing that we're keeping qualified Asian American students on the sidelines.
Yeah, and we tried, and then the not one seat was won from the opposition because the demographics, as you know, in Fairfax County, is just like 2-to-1 straight ticket Democrat, and that's the monopoly that destroys actual political discussion, intellectual debate. And that's what's created this monopoly of bad ideas, right? Like it's the Southern Democrats all over again in Northern Virginia, and they've taken root. I mean, you remember Louise Lucas even called out the racist the Democrats in Northern Virginia. Yeah. Scott Surville, Carl Frisch, Stella Pekarsky, the whole lot of them, and I love that Samuel Alito called him out too. Yeah. This is a hard day.
Playing the long game.
Well,
yes, exactly.
Asra is going to law school, so maybe we should just get her appointed to the Supreme Court eventually. That will solve some problems.
There's one vote.
Julie, you always have a vision. I love it. I can do it.
Asra.
I've looked at their ages, and I still have time.
You can do it.
All right, thank you. Thank you for joining us today on a little bit of a post-mortem, and we'll get them next time.
No, we will. We are just in our new life, new incarnation, and I love you guys for always being there with us.
It is 7:45 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
All right, on the Fairfax County Parkway, you want to try to avoid.
Our latest Hunter Biden update is a doozy. Apparently, Hunter Biden is now snorting sawdust. Am I reading this right? I'm reading from Newsweek. The legal team for Hunter Biden on Tuesday argued that the Department of Justice had mistaken sawdust for cocaine in photos found on the president's son's phone and then used as evidence in court against him. Huh.
Yeah. I bet they got that wrong.
Well, I'm looking at the picture. It does look a little more, yellowy,
it looks like
browny.
sawdust, but why is it tapped out into three perfectly straight
it
lines?
It's like, well, I guess it's just sort of like his habit. Whenever he sees a bunch of powder
There's
around,
this movie called like Bad Boss or something. I can't remember, like Worst Boss. I don't know. And they accidentally sweep it up, and then they dump all the contents of the vacuum cleaner out, and they sniff. They Anyway, I wouldn't put past him if there was cocaine in the sawdust to snort that up.
I mean, he has admitted snorting Parmesan cheese. So
yes, that's
now
right.
he's just a do-it-yourselfer. He's a handyman. He's just trying to refocus his proclivities to some carpentry work. On Tuesday, Hunter Biden's legal team filed a new motion attempting to compel the provision of discovery documents, arguing that prosecutors had not provided enough material to that point. Within the filing, Lowell also dismissed photo evidence prosecutors used in court, which they claim showed cocaine. According to the attorney, the photos, which were taken from Hunter Biden's phone, actually show sawdust. He also claimed that the photos were sent to his client by someone else, his former psychiatrist, Dr. Keith Albo.
Nice people. It's cocaine.
An attorney for Hunter Biden is disputing the picture included in the special counsel, saying it's cocaine, as was previously described, but it's in fact sawdust. Sawdust, because an expert carpenter, multiple sources have pointed out, a review of discovery confirms that this is actually a photo of sawdust from an expert carpenter, and it was sent to Mr. Biden, not vice versa. So let's just get this straight. Everything's fine with Hunter Biden. He doesn't have any sort of illegal drug habits or anything. He's just getting photos from friends of his who take a pile of sawdust and line it out in perfect little rows as if they were about to snort them. Why would you send that to Hunter Biden?
Is that a joke? Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, Hunter will appreciate this. Why? Because it looks like cocaine. Mistaking sawdust for cocaine sounds more like a storyline from one of the 1980s Police Academy comedies than what should be expected in a high-profile prosecution by the U.S. Department of Justice.
Yes, the entire Biden administration sometimes feels like a 1980s Police Academy comedy because things are just out of control.
Our friend Chef Gruel said, I had a cousin who had a sawdust addiction. Started with the powder on pre-shredded Parmesan cheese. Then he started breaking into a Home Depot lumber section at night. Happens quickly. Don't buy pre-shredded cheese. That's the moral of the story here. Is
Yes.
don't get that Parmesan cheese that, seems like it. Because let's face it, that's sort of like sawdust as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and in other good Biden family member news.
Yeah. Brother Jimmy's going to be on Capitol Hill today testifying under oath about how everything was legal and on the up and up. And if you dare to challenge that notion, you're actually partaking in Russian disinformation. You're Putin's pawn and you're disrupting the 2024 presidential
And you hate
election.
America.